Hi everyone, my name is Amara from Adhd Rising, and today we will be talking about like ADHD, chemical sensitivity, autism, Asperger's. I've worked with multiple people in the past over these issues, but the biggest one was going through it with my own son. At the age of 2, my son was borderline autistic, and by the time he was 5, he was actually diagnosed as a bubble boy with the worst age-related chemical sensitivity on the Gold Coast. It was awful, and I actually got told that because he was intolerant to over 90% of food, including most fruit except for peeled pears, most vegetables, anything packaged, meat that hadn't been killed within 24 hours, wheat, dairy, anything, the list just went on and on. It was crazy. And he was also depressive ADHD and Asperger's. And I got told that more than likely he wasn't going to survive because his sensitivities were getting worse and worse. And I was like, wow, okay. It's the only thing that they could do to slow down the process was to put this child on antidepressants. And I was like, well, I wouldn't go on antidepressants. There's no way I'm going to allow a 5-year-old to be on antidepressants. So I walked away that day and I never went back. And I got home and I just had this strange urge to go through one of the old phone books. And I found the name of a Native American Indian man and I rang him. And I told him my story, and I just asked him, I said, can you fix my son? And he said, bring him in. And that day I brought my son in, and this man balanced his DNA. And he took one look at me and he said, you have so much anger. If you don't make change, this child will have the most miserable life ever. I didn't know what to think about it, but I walked away, and that night my son could actually eat a tomato, and it was so exciting that I rang the same man the next morning and said, can you train me how to do it? And he did. But from there, my son still had major major emotional issues, behavioural issues. So we'd get a visitor over and he'd freak out and he'd go and hide until they were gone, and it sort of led me on this journey of self-healing. And I went into self-healing and I went and learnt how to break down my timelines, how to face my trauma. And I started shifting my DNA and the timeline, and as I did it, my son got better and better and better. He's now about to turn 21 and he has no issues. He's allergic to dairy, and that's about it, but so am I. So realistically, the more I cleared my line of DNA and my timeline, the more he improved. So I found, and I realized as time went on, that what I was doing is that I was projecting my trauma onto my child. And that's what he was reacting to. So if you've got trauma, which I believe, I don't know anyone that hasn't, and if you've had a harsh upbringing and if you've had a lot of trauma going down your ancestral timelines, and you have this underlying expectation, it's almost like a perception of how things are going to be, and you haven't worked on that, you are projecting that onto your child. So if you have a child with behavioural issues, you need to clear your timeline. You don't need medication, you don't need drugs. And the thing is when you learn how to face yourself and learn how to shift your timeline, then not only are you giving your child the life they deserve, you're giving self the life you deserve, but you're also clearing the timeline for future generations to come. And so the thing here is these children can't be controlled. They already know their path, but you need to be on your path and be following through for you to be able to teach them to do the same. There was even a stage when my son, I think he was like 13 or 14 years old, and I looked at him and I said, look, you're so out of alignment. Get on the healing table. Your energy needs to be cleared. And he sat on the table and he looked at me and he goes, Mum, it's not me, it's you. You need to go now. You go off, go and do that clearing crap that you do. Go off to your creek, go wherever, I don't care. I'll be here when you get home. And I listened to him, and I did, I went and did it. And it was so amazing. Like, I went off and did the clearing, and I got home a couple of hours later, and the whole house was cleaned up, which has never happened. And I just looked at her and said, oh, do you feel better now? And he just looked at me and he said, thank you, Mum, I feel so much better. And in that moment, I realised that I projected my insecurity onto him, and that they act as our little mirrors. So if you've had a bad day at work and you've picked up a whole heap of not very nice energy, more than likely you're going to go home and your child will react to that. They don't want that false energy in their field. And once you learn how to work with your own energy, you will see how detrimental that energy is. So they are doing nothing more than mirroring yourself back to you. So rather than shift them or change them, or, try to control them, or try to make things right, or look at them as having behavioural issues, don't. Walk away. Go and clear yourself, feel what's going on, learn how to clear your cycles. Okay, if you want to learn how to clear cycles, all my details are on my website, Earth Star Rising, and I can assist with that. My child is now almost 21, and he is just the calmest, kindest, most beautiful young man that I know. He doesn't have the behavioural issues. He doesn't have issues. So please, if you have a child that comes under these labels, take the label off, because they are super sensitive. And I will do another video on super sensitives and the impacts of energy. I hope you have a totally amazing day. Sending lots of love.